So I don't know whether a lot of people will agree to this article written by Irohi Nodua, saying how Igogon, Igboho, other Yoruba villages were ravaged by armed Fulani in the 18th century. You know that Igboho is a village or is a town, I don't know, but it's the name of a community, and that is where Sunday hails from. So they always call him Sunday Igboho. Of course, we all know that his name is Sunday Adeyemo, but because he's from that place and he's been fighting for his people, so they just name him Sunday Igboho. So Igboho is a name of a community in Oyo State. So this writer is telling us how Igogon or Igono, okay, this is Igono, Igboho, other Yoruba villages were ravaged by armed Fulani in the 18th century. Well, called from William Clark's book Travels and Exploration in Yoruba Land 1854 to 1858. William Clark was a missionary who visited Yoruba land between 1854 and 1858. His account below shows clearly that ravaging of Yoruba nation dates back to centuries. Hinoda recalls the chilling accounts. Just at this time, the great thirst for pillage and kidnapping had reached such degree in all the country as to prove such a powerful auxiliary to the Fulani in carrying on their conquest by breaking that bond of union which hitherto had presented the Yoruba to their neighbors as a powerful and prosperous people. If on the one hand the Fulani, who had been the scourge of interior Africa, were coming down like an avalanche on the kingdom, sweeping everything before it, the people of Yoruba land on the other hand were the prey of their own cupidity and became so far abandoned to every vile principle as to subject their neighbors of contiguous cities to slavery, verifying in their case the saying of scripture that the wicked tremble at the shaking of a leaf. Scarcely anyone was going to the farms lest before night they should be in fetters of robbers and en route of the barracoon or slave deck on the coast. Before these disturbances, though there were a number of very large and populous cities in the kingdom, such as Old Oyo, Ilori, Igboho, Ikoyi, and others, other people generally lived in small towns and villages, each, according to reports, of about 1,000 of inhabitants and devoted to the cultivation of the country. But when compelled to flee, they threw themselves together into some well fortified towns for mutual defense against the common enemy, and with a resolution and firmness worthy of a people fighting for life and liberty, determined to conquer or die. Town and city were continually swept away. The terror-stricken people were fleeing in every direction, seeking peace and safety, but find their homes in the island of Cuba or on the plantations of Brazil, except those who were so fortunate as to find a foothold on the capricious soil of Sierra Leone. The town of Ogbomoso, which protected the aggregating population of many surrounding towns, sustained its defense long and well, and with three or four others now stands the remnants of what once was the original kingdom of Yoruba land. The Fulani, flushed with a continual victory, bore down on every successive town in their march to the coast, pressing on the devoted Yoruba, who in turn rushed like madmen on the defenseless Egba until the conquering army met a force worthy of it, still in the determined and brave soldiers of the large city of Ibadan. These mad followers of the prophet, who had made their boast that were it not for the sea, they could have conquered even the pale-faced Kaffirs of the west, here with a signal defeat were forced to terminate their prestige on the southern side of Niger. It will never be possible, I imagine, to record the details of the great tragedy of the page of history and assign the full weight to the regular causes of its dissolution, so entire and extensive as to have few parallels in human experience. The work is done. Hundreds of towns and cities within the territory of 50,000 miles live only in name or in the songs of humiliated people or the green grass, the heavy undergrowth or the broken walls that perchance marks the site of dissolution and ruin. Of the evidence of this dissolution and travelers may become satisfied in its direction, east, west, or north, until the earth suffers at the sight of so much destruction and ruin, of the blood that was there, of the tears that flowed, of human misery that covered the land like a cloud of darkness, in destruction of property, the blasting of hopes, and the separation of each and every human tie that unites heart to heart. Let the reader step back 20 years ago and walk the streets of Sierra Leone and mark those multi-form countenance and languages. They let them they let him stop that man who says Aku, and here is sad retica of the sins and even and events have been transpiring for years back in his native language or native land. Hear him as with tearful eyes he relates the capture and destruction of his town, the death before his eyes of his own father or mother, the captivity of his brothers and sisters, and an eternal separation for all that is dear to him of kindred and friends and home and consignment, as he thought, in a foreign land to a life of long servitude. Listen to the reticles of hundreds such, more thrilling and startling than the miniature pictures of what transpired on the scale of a whole nation, and we may have some faint idea of what is in the great tragedy acted out in the most interesting portions of Africa, or if we would have one single sighted or one single city presented to view. Take that mentioned earlier, namely the city of Igboho, which, when seen by Saunders 30 years ago, contained an immense population with its three walls of mud, but when seen by the writer in 1855 was almost destroyed, yet with relics sufficient to testify to its former greatness. If it be now asked what was the principal cause of so great desolation and misery, I answer that it was the removal from the African coast of the safeguards of native liberty the American and British cruisers substituted with those crafts that bear in their wake a pestilence worse than death itself. For introduce again a trade whose influence of the native mind is like the destructive upas tree, and sooner or later they will be rekindled through all Sudan the fire of civil war, which will reproduce all changes of such fearful import, dissolution, ruin, and destruction as are enough to arouse the indignation of any free man against the presentation of wrongs that have scarcely a parallel within the pages of history. That the slave trade had all to do with the utter overthrow and ruin of many fair positions of Africa, I would not say, but it had most illegitimately and wickedly a very great share in the influences that produced such requests. No candid, well informed mind well-informed mind can for a moment doubt its influence was long seen and felt like an undercurrent wearing away, and the more dangerous because it was unobserved and was preparing the minds and the hearts of the people by its debasing effects until then. Hmm. It is not now, it's been a long time.